Sometimes, the smallest of moments carry the power to change the course of entire lives. It begins with nothing more than a glance, a careless word, or in this case, a simple parking spot on a busy London street. On this particular evening, the air was sharp and chilly, the kind of night where people hurried through the sidewalks, eager to get home and escape the cold. The street was crowded with cars, headlights cutting through the darkness, horns echoing faintly in the distance. Tom Spencer, a weary accountant in his early 30s, had been circling the block for nearly 15 minutes. His eyes were heavy from a long day at work, and his patience was wearing thin. Then, like a blessing from above, he spotted Eton's empty parking space at the far end of the street. Relief washed over him as he flipped on his indicator, slowed the car, and prepared to pull in, but fate, as it often does, had other plans. From the opposite side of the street, a sleek black SUV darted forward and slid aggressively into the very same space. Tom's foot slammed on the brake, his horn blared, and disbelief froze him for a second. His relief turned instantly into rage. He lowered his window and leaned out, his voice sharp and accusing. "Hey, that was my spot. I was right there." His shout drew the attention of a few pedestrians, who slowed their steps, curious about the rising tension. The SUV door opened, and out stepped a woman in her late 20s, stylishly dressed but visibly stressed. Sarah Williams, independent and stubborn, looked at Tom with irritation. "Excuse me," she shot back, her tone firm. "I was waiting from the other side. First come, first serve." Her words cut through the cold air like ice. Tom's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his face reddening with anger. "First come, don't lie. I had my indicator on. You just cut me off." Sarah folded her arms, unyielding. "Oh, please," she snapped. "Don't act like you own the street. Find another spot." The crowd began to grow, a teenager pulling out his phone to record what was quickly turning into a spectacle. Tom couldn't hold back anymore. He stepped out of his silver sedan, his voice rising. "You can't just steal people's spots. Do you even know how to drive?" Sarah, refusing to flinch, shot back with equal fire. "Do you know how to control your temper? It's just a parking space." To Tom, however, it wasn't just a space. It was respect, pride, dignity. And when his hand struck the side mirror of her car, pushing it roughly, gasps echoed from the crowd. In that instant, the fight had gone too far. And somewhere nearby, someone had already dialed 9. The argument on the street escalated like a wildfire, fueled not by reason, but by wounded pride. The teenager with his phone zoomed in on every moment, capturing Tom's red face, Sarah's defiant stance, and the small but growing crowd that whispered and chuckled as though they were watching a street performance. Some shook their heads in disapproval, while others leaned in, eager for more drama. One older man muttered, "All this fuss over a car space," but still he stood and watched. Unwilling to leave, Tom, chest heaving, jabbed his finger toward Sarah's SUV, shouting accusations while Sarah fired back, her voice rising louder with each sentence. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made passersby pause and wonder when fists might fly. Then, suddenly, the distant wail of sirens cut through the night. Blue lights flickered across the street as a police car slowed to a halt near the crowd. Murmurs rippled instantly. Some people stepped back, while others pressed forward with excitement. "This is going to get interesting," someone whispered. Two officers stepped out, one male and one female, both moving with the calm precision of people used to chaos. Officer Patel, a tall man with sharp eyes, raised his hand as he approached. "All right, what's going on here?" His voice carried authority, commanding silence for a brief second. But Tom, already brimming with anger, pointed toward Sarah, his voice almost trembling with fury. "She stole my parking spot. I was right there, and she cut in." Sarah immediately raised her own voice, arms crossed defensively. "That's not true. He came charging at me, shouting like a madman. He even touched my car, tried to break the mirror." Her tone was strong, but tinged with a trace of fear, and it didn't go unnoticed. The crowd hummed like a restless beehive, some nodding in agreement with her, others whispering that Tom had indeed been waiting first. Officer Williams, the female officer, stepped closer to Sarah. "Ma'am, we'll take your statement in a moment." Patel moved toward Tom, his hand up in warning. "Sir, you need to calm down right now." But Tom, feeling cornered, snapped back. Calm down. I've been circling for 20 minutes, and she just swoops in like she owns the place. This isn't fair. Patel's tone hardened, his voice low but firm. Sir, shouting on a public street. Damaging someone's property. That's not the way to handle things. Take a breath before this gets worse. But by then, it already had. The crowd now had their phones raised, recording from every angle. The flashing blue lights painted the walls of nearby shops. The moment immortalized in digital form. Tom's anger was no longer just his burden. It was about to become the world's entertainment. Tom's voice still echoed in his head long after the flashing. Blue lights faded into the distance. The ride to the station had been silent except for the occasional crackle of the radio, and though he wasn't handcuffed, the humiliation of sitting in the back of the patrol car gnawed at him. At the station, the sterile brightness of fluorescent lights and the cold steel of the interview room swallowed him whole. He sat at a metal table, his reflection faintly visible in the glass wall, every breath heavier than the last. Officer Patel entered with a clipboard, his calm but firm presence filling the room. Mr. Spencer, he began, we've received witness statements and video recordings. The allegation is aggressive behavior and potential criminal damage. Do you understand? Tom's fists clenched. His voice strained as he slammed his palm against the table. This is insane. It was just a mirror. I didn't break anything. She provoked me. Patel didn't flinch. He simply jotted notes and replied evenly. The law doesn't excuse aggression over trivial matters. You're an educated man. You should know better. Tom's anger cracked, giving way to desperation. His shoulders slumped, his voice low and broken. I've been under so much pressure. I didn't mean for it to happen. I just snapped. Meanwhile, in another room, Sarah sat across from Officer Williams, her hands twisted nervously in her lap, her voice steady but tinged with guilt. I admit, maybe I pulled in too quickly. But when he shouted and pushed my mirror, I was scared. I didn't know if he'd lash out next. Williams scribbled in her notes. So you felt threatened. That's why you called? Sarah nodded softly. Yes, I didn't want it to go this far. I just wanted him to stop yelling. Back in Tom's room, Patel leaned forward, eyes sharp but voice measured. Here's the truth, Tom. Incidents like this, small, ridiculous arguments, they escalate. Today, it's a mirror. Tomorrow, it could be worse. Do you know how many assaults start this way? Tom pressed his face into his hands, the weight of Patel's words crashing over him. Hours passed in silence before Williams returned with Patel. Mr. Spencer, Williams said, based on the evidence, we could charge you with disorderly conduct. But Tom lifted his head, his heart pounding. But what? Williams exchanged a glance with Patel. Sarah has agreed not to press for damages, provided you attend anger management and accept a formal warning. Pride screamed at him to argue, but his logic whispered surrender. The fight was over, but the consequences were just beginning. When Tom finally walked out of the police station, the night felt heavier than before, as though the entire city had turned its back on him. His shoulders sagged, his pride crushed under the weight of flashing blue lights and cold paperwork. Sarah exited moments later, clutching her car keys tightly. For a brief second, their eyes met on the steps. Neither spoke. There were no insults, no apologies. Only silence, silence that screamed louder than their earlier shouting match. They turned away in opposite directions, strangers once more, yet forever bound by the memory of that night. The following morning, Tom sat at his office desk, pretending to work while his mind replayed the humiliation. Officer Patel's words echoed in his ears. Respect isn't earned by shouting, it's lost by it. His phone buzzed with notifications, and dread churned in his stomach. When he opened it, there it was, a viral clip of him on social media, face twisted in rage, shouting over a parking space. The caption was cruel. Man loses it over a car spot in London. Thousands of strangers laughed, mocked, and judged him with ruthless comments. Tom shut the phone, his hands trembling. What had started as a moment of frustration was now public shame, and it threatened to stain his career, his relationships, and his sense of self. Across the city, Sarah sat by her apartment window that evening, a cup of tea in her hands, but no comfort in its warmth. The guilt pressed down on her. She had told the truth to the police, but deep inside, she knew she could have ended it earlier by offering a simple apology. Her friend had called earlier, laughing about the viral video, praising Sarah for standing her ground. But Sarah didn't laugh. Instead, she whispered into the quiet of her flat, "I could have just said sorry. Why didn't I?" The memory haunted her. Weeks later, Tom found himself in a circle of strangers at an anger management class. When his turn came to speak, he swallowed his pride and admitted softly, "It started with a parking spot. I thought I was standing up for myself, but I lost control, and now I've lost more than I ever gained." Heads nodded around him. His shame was a story they all recognized. Months passed until fate intervened again. At a small cafe, Tom and Sarah met by chance. Their eyes locked, and for a moment the past rushed back. But instead of anger, Tom offered quiet words. "I'm sorry," Sarah, stunned, nodded slowly and replied, "So am I." No dramatic ending followed. No friendship blossomed. But there was understanding, a painful lesson etched in both their hearts. And as they parted, the truth remained clear. Pride may win you a moment, but humility saves you a lifetime.